Hey guys, I want to show you why Jak'Sho's the protein is a really bad item. Specifically when purchased with no other tank items, on marksman, on random mages, even on random bruisers for no reason. And for that we'll have to go through different steps to understand itemization better as a whole. Maybe not just in League of Legends, but in general in video games. The first thing that we have to understand when it comes to these items is that an item has to either have a very high amount of inflated stats or have an invaluable passive or active that translates into a big amount of gold. Okay? Let me give you an example. For the sake of it, we'll also go over the build path a bit when it comes to Trinity Force. So let's say Shin. The ability haste is roughly a third of the gold value, even if you look at the old Shin price before it got ability haste added to it. So it means that for Shin to be a good item, again not broken, not strong, just a decent item, it has to deal similar damage as 2 longswords. And you'll notice that on Art of Champions it can for sure outdamage 2 longswords, especially if you have some kind of short trade or poke pattern in lane. Shin, very good item. And of course, as the game progresses, it gets much better than 2 longswords. Good component. Then you look at Phage, you'll realize that you are paying 250 gold. So this item is almost 100% gold efficient, by the way. I think you're paying about 30 gold for this 20 movement speed. And we all know that a bunch of champions simply need that movement speed difference. Not by much, just have the 20 movement speed over you in order to stay in range and kill you. So for those champions, it's kind of invaluable. Phage is crucial. It can make the difference between you getting ran down by Seth or Darius in lane or not. And then if we look at Hardbound X, what you're gonna notice is that you pay 250 gold for roughly almost 400 gold in terms of stats. And even though Hardbound X is a lame component, it doesn't have a passive, it ends up being a good component, just because of the gold efficiency. It just does the job if you want to be building an auto attacker that goes into Trinity Force. Therefore, we have 3 nice components here, arguably pretty strong components, that go into Trinity Force for 33 gold. So what are we getting here? 10 AD, 8 attack speed, 100 health, 10 ability haste, and my Shin proc does double damage. Trinity Force overall, pretty strong item, it's quite gold efficient, it has a lot of good stats, and a very useful passive. The Spellblade. Now we can conclude that Trinity Force is a pretty strong item. Then we have to look at a much different option, such as Blade of Irelking, where you are only getting 10 attack speed and 1% lifesteal for this amount of gold. But even though it's quite gold and efficient, the passive is invaluable. It can translate to thousands of gold in terms of damage that you would get from purchasing raw AD or attack speed. Plus even some utility in the slow. Therefore, we all know that pretty much everyone thinks Blade of Irelking is a really strong item or even overpowered, because it has a really strong passive even though the stats aren't amazing. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have something like Kempunk Chainsword. And the issue with Kempunk Chainsword is that, yes, you have some decent components here. You pay 500 gold for 15 AD, which is already more than 500 gold, 100 health, 5 ability haste. Very gold efficient item. Still, extremely bad and pointless to purchase unless you really need healing reduction in your full build, so you can upgrade it as your last item since you have no more slots. But by itself, it doesn't give anything. It's still the same passive. A Ushushu's calling, great component, but you can even sell it late game. If your teammates have enough healing reduction items, you could perhaps build a black cleaver. Alright? So it's much better to spend this 2k gold into an item that is worthwhile, that might even give you similar stats, even though it's not gonna be as strong in the very exact moment. You could get ability haste from this if you really cared about ability haste very soon for your champion's pattern. Maybe there's a certain threshold, for example on Aatrox, you can use E on every single one of your Q cast if you have a certain amount of ability haste. But that doesn't mean you should build Kempang Chainsword in order to achieve that, right? You can simply go into another item that has ability haste, such as Spear of Shojin in this case. Either way, you get the point. You can have a very gold efficient item that is actually terrible. Or you can have a very gold efficient item that is somewhat broken. Blade of the King is considered pretty broken by a lot of players, and they wish it would get nerfed on the one-hit damage. Now, what we have to get at, so you guys get my point, is that Jak'Sho the protein is already the completed item in its components. You are gonna get Chain Vest, Negatron Cloak, and that is your item. I'm already running around with Jak'Sho in my inventory right now. Because, let's say I even buy the Ruby Crystal, I'm paying 1100 gold for what? A Ruby Crystal and like half a cloth armor. That is about half of this gold, so it's a pretty big difference. It means that the passive from Jak'Sho has to be much better than roughly 500 gold, okay? So now is it? The item is not gold efficient, you already get its power from the components, and then the passive, guess what? It's completely useless if you don't have a lot of resist items. Because all you get is a cloth armor, and then another magical cloth armor. And magic resist has a bit less gold value than armor, by the way, about 10%. But that's besides the point, it doesn't really matter. So you are essentially buying an item that is worse than Kempang Chainsword. You are buying an item that has 100% gold efficiency with no passive. That is terrible. Like Kempang Chainsword is above 100% gold efficiency, while it also has a healing reduction passive. You get what I'm saying? And yeah, of course, you use the argument of executioner's calling, it's not worth upgrading. But this, on an analytical standpoint, is a stronger item than Jak'Sho if it's built on a carry with not being accompanied by resist items or even HP items for that matter, because you are not getting a lot of effective health if your HP pool is already small, right? You're building damage items. For example, you might go Blade of Irelking into Green's Rage Blade, or maybe Kraken Slayer instead of one of these items, grab some attacks with boots, and this is what a lot of players are going to end up doing on maybe Vayne, or Varus, or Kalista. They're going to go Jak'Sho, third item. So we can already see why this is extremely bad to have, because this item is only going to start having some sort of power, some gold efficiency from the passive that you spend so much gold to reach. 3200 gold is a huge investment in this video game. If you spend this much gold for an item, it better have some kind of broken passive, like Zhonya's giving you immunity, you know, Infinity Edge increasing your crit damage by a lot, Titanic Hydra, of course, also pretty good item. You can't just spend 3200 gold on an item that gives you no upgrade to your power. You should definitely, if you want defense, look at the other defensive options that are specifically made for your type of champion, for a carry character. And there are nuances to this where, even if you wanted both armor and magic resist, first of all, we gotta conclude something here. Just because you get Jak'Sho on a marksman doesn't mean that you are getting full value of the item gold, because you are not going to guarantee that after you die, or even after you survive, doesn't matter, you're going to take 50% magic damage and 50% physical damage. A lot of the time, you might be taking 20% physical, 80% magical or something like that. So you don't even get the full value of the item. You have to consider that if you are playing a carry, you're sitting in the backline, and the enemy team might not have specific tools to get to you or deal with you. And I understand you're buying this for more like close range melee champions for the most part. It's just like Vayne, Kalista, whatever. But still, it could be simply an Akali trying to dive you and then the armor is useless, or a Talon trying to assassinate you and then the magic resist is useless. So even from this angle of analyzing the item, it's still not going to guarantee that it's a good purchase. But let's say you wanted both armor and magic resistance. So what you could do instead is get a Malmortius, which, if you look at it on paper, it's more effective health than Jak'Sho against magic damage. Plus you get hidden utility within the lifesteal. And then you have 65 AD. And I don't know how you are going to justify missing 65 AD, by the way, because that is just a huge amount of damage. Huge amount of damage, especially for certain ratios. It's around 2300 gold value. And I understand that some people might be like, bro, why are you mentioning gold value? Nobody cares about gold value. And I'm not saying that I care about gold value. I'm just talking about gold value where it matters, because in certain contexts, the gold value of an item, it matters. Especially of an item like Jak'Sho that doesn't have a passive. Jak'Sho is only a ball of stats. Just like you can easily see how much gold value you are going to get from a Rabadon. Because you know that 20p is 400 gold. Just like a longsword is 350 gold. So you can easily calculate how much gold value you are going to get from Eclipse 70 AD. It's around 2400 gold or something. Anyways, you could have Malmortius and then some type of armor item like Warden's Mail, maybe Steel Caps, maybe Steel Sigil. This overall is going to make you, you know, similar tankiness. You might want to build this into GA, for example. Terrible item, I don't like it, but still. You could even have a Vamp Scepter. You should simply itemize for something more specific, because, like I said, not every team comp is 50-50 damage split, and not every team fight is gonna revolve around everyone hitting the marksman. It's not like a tank. A tank has to mostly tank both physical and magical. You want a bit of both worlds into most team compositions. But you're not a frontliner. Even if you are trying to play a bit like one by going complete bazooka melee with Vayne, okay? On top of that, you also have Wit's End. Again, you can already get the power of Jak'Sho by building something like this. If you go Negatron Cloak with Warden's Mail, that's it, you have the Jak'Sho. You can start building another item if you don't care about Adorns. So for example, you could get Terminus, if you really wanted to have the penetration, for example, against some tanks. Yes, your inventory is going to be a little clogged, but you could have simply not build Warden's Mail, or not build the Negatron. You don't have to necessarily build both. I'm just saying if you really care about both armor and MR, which is rare for a marksman, like I said, even these turbo melee ones. And on top of that, you have other itemization options. I understand, if you go to Shield Bow, it's a really good item. You're gonna get around 400-500 shield depending on the level. Not gonna mention that Wit's End has tenacity and a crazy invaluable amount of damage that you are missing on if you go for Jak'Sho. But I get it. Shield Bow doesn't make you tanky to burst when you build into it. It only happens after you build the item. So you still might want to build this kind of like somewhat off-tank items. But of course, if you play something like Kalista, you might even be able to build a Randuin against something like Yana, Jinx, you know, Samira, Yasuo. Sure, do that. At which point, maybe if you also went Steel Caps, you might think, hey man, isn't this a good angle to go Jak'Sho? And I'll have to say, no, you fucking dumb fuck. You are gonna deal 0 damage right now. They're just gonna ignore you, and you're gonna be completely useless. Since you have a lot of resist, you want to multiply them with lifesteal, or at least shieldball. Some relevant damage, because Bloodthirster is gonna give you a lot more potential. Jak'Sho has no potential, it's just there, you have the stats and that's it. But Bloodthirster has potential. A lot of potential to sustain you. You can get thousands of healing on minions, on objectives, in the team fight. It's about the potential. A lot of the time in League of Legends, you have to itemize for the potential. Okay? Going Jak'Sho is the equivalent of taking PTA on Darius. Yes, you could have a lot of situations in which PTA on Darius somehow ended up being better. But does that mean that it was a better choice? Of course not. You are still gonna want to have Conqueror because it has more potential. That's what people don't get about Conqueror. They will look at the endgame number and they see like, it only healed me for 500 in 30 minutes. But I don't realize that it's about the potential. It could have healed you for 3k maybe, if the stars aligned. It's about the potential. You are preparing to have more potential to win a fight through those stats. Jak'Sho will never have potential, while some of these items will, because they come with some form of split. Yes, of course, you're not gonna be as tanky as Burst if all 5 enemy players blow their load on your face. You're gonna be slightly tankier with Jak'Sho than with some of these items, but if the team fights play normally, of course you're gonna get perhaps more durability and a lot more damage in some instances. Yeah, even more durability from something like Bloodthirster. Because what you have to understand in League of Legends, another very important concept that you have to understand in League of Legends. I'll give you a really brain-rotten example. You could be Camille and choose between Trinity4's first item or Randuin's first item. Who do you think is going to be tankier? Camille with Trinity4's or Camille with Randuin's Omen? Of course the Camille with Trinity4's is going to be 10 times tankier because she can actually kill her target. Damage is her tankiness. If you go Jak'Sho, you are going to get into a lot of situations. For example, just, okay, random. Let's say you're in a team fight. You didn't kill the Vi because you went Jak'Sho. It does no damage. We are missing so much DPS from a Witsend, for example. Now Vi managed to get another Q channel across your mouth. You are knocked up. She gets her passive shield. She gets maybe Thunder Skyproc. And not even that. You simply succeed. Maybe her teammates kill you. A lot of situations like that will happen. And they did happen a lot when people were trolling with Radiant second item on Varus and stuff like that. A lot. They would simply not be able to kill anyone. The bruisers would simply get close onto them and they would die anyway. That's how League of Legends works. If you play a champion with Kite and you don't deal enough damage, you're gonna die. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't build some defensive items on AD carries from time to time. It just simply means you shouldn't overkill it. It's the same as building, I don't know, Rod of Ages on Xerath. You know, you see some memes from time to time. Rod of Ages Xerath, Rod of Ages Sway, Rod of Ages Ziggs, whatever. They used to happen back in the day as well, like season 7, 8, 9, whatever. Rod of Ages is nuts. Of course it's not gonna do anything because your champion is supposed to not take damage, supposed to sit in the backline. If you really care about something like that, you could, you know, pick up a Zhonya's or whatever. Not completely gimp your entire game to get this shitty item. That's what a lot of people end up doing from time to time. Rod of Ages Vel'Koz, Omega lol. That just works because Vel'Koz is broken. He can build whatever he wants, no problem. Don't let people know. He's the worst champion in the game. Anyways, the only acceptable way I can see this being built is if you had, let's say, Witsend, Terminus, with Steel Caps, and then maybe you'd go Jak'Sho. But then again, you have to get qualified for this item, because Malmortius might still be a better item, Randuin might still be a better item, that might even give you more durability. depending on what you are playing against. But this would be the only acceptable angle for Jak'Sho, in my opinion. You have like multiple resist items, and you have it as your last item because it's simply slot efficient. Jak'Sho in a build like this is only useful as your last item, simply because now if I would build a speed visage, I can no longer get the warden's mail to combine them or something like that, right? And yeah, even speed visage might be better than Jak'Sho if you have a Soraka or something, or Sona. You really have to weigh these things. And another interesting thing is that if you really want double resist, just be Locket, be a fucking team player, and go Locket. You get armor, MR, health, ability haste. And your next item comes a lot sooner. You can grab a Vampiric Scepter and be overall more useful. This should probably make sense if you are a conscious human being. This is better than Jak'Sho because you actually get something useful. It might not be the most efficient item in terms of stats probably. Like what are we getting here? You know, you get a cloth armor, 5 MR. That's actually decently gold efficient, just like Jak'Sho is, you know. But at least you are getting something useful and you are getting whatever you wanted. Let's say you really wanted these stats for some reason, even though, like I said, don't have to care about that really. And you'll be able to build into your next item a lot quicker. And why that is very important is because this is not about playing for 6 items. You don't play for 6 items in League of Legends. If you really wanted Jak'Sho, you could simply get to full build in late game and now sell your Locket for Jak'Sho. Or for a different item that is better than Jak'Sho, of course. But yeah, you're gonna lose 650 gold or something and get Jak'Sho. No big deal. Is it really such a big deal to think through these terms when you play League of Legends? I don't know what to say. Anyways, hope you guys got the idea. You shouldn't buy Jak'Sho on carries. And the same thing goes for, let's say, I've seen memes like this. There's an Aatrox, he goes Eclipse, Sundered Sky, and now you might think, yeah, resist would be pretty nice. And you are right, you have an item that heals you, an item that shields you, and your champion heals a lot from its kit, which might mean that resist could make you quite unkillable, especially if the enemy team can burst. You are gonna constantly just become immortal, pretty much. So why would you go Jak'Sho when you could go, let's say something like this, you know, or even like this, or you could build a Stellax Siege, or something that is gonna make you tankier than Jak'Sho by default, Speed Visage and a Cloth Armor. This makes you tankier than Jak'Sho. It just does. Even if you're against a lot of physical damage, it just makes you tankier. Because it's gonna amplify these items and your kit. 25% is a lot. Because you're gonna heal and shield for thousands as Aatrox, especially if you're ahead. Because if you are behind, you shouldn't really look to build tank anyway. You should probably build something like Stellax Gauge, which is also a better item than Jak'Sho in this case, even though it's nothing too crazy. But for example, Aatrox has a lot of base AD. And then another thing that I've seen is, for example, Relay plus Riftmaker Mordekaiser, and then Jak'Sho. And this is once again also pretty tradable, because you have some other options. You could have Force of Nature, and you really have to itemize a bit for whatever you might be silencing against too. And there are a lot of items that are either more specific towards a certain champion, that have like actually powerful utility, such as Force of Nature, or Frozen Heart, or Anathema's Chains, but also more neutral stuff. Like for example, Spirit Visage is a bit more neutral. It's a pretty good item against physical damage as well, because a lot of its value comes from health. Health is good against physical damage. So once again, here you could have something like this, and then let's say you don't want to get kited, so you go Force of Nature, and yes, you could most definitely go Frozen Heart on Mordekaiser, no problem, but this is just a random example, could be other champions. And then you could get your Jak'Sho last item. you know? That's just how it is. Or you could simply buy more damage, if that's what you want. But you already solved the deal about double resists, and then you can see a lot of ways to see this. And then let me show you proper ways to build Jak'Sho, because I've seen people buy Jak'Sho even second, something like Leandri's Jak'Sho, Trinity Force Jak'Sho Darius, Richmaker into Jak'Sho. All of these are completely extremely terrible, because like I said, you already have a Jak'Sho from Chain Vest and Negatron Cloak. Why not just build something like this? This is your Jak'Sho already, this is the Jak'Sho value. Boom, Frozen Heart, this is the same price. Frozen Heart plus Negatron is Jak'Sho. Much more efficient items. And you're actually going to itemize towards something that you might care about. Let's say they have somebody that is ahead as an auto taker, let's say Jax, or who knows, whatever, random AD champion. It's besides the point. Frozen Heart, Negatron Cloak, goes into a Force of Nature, or Kenny Krukern. Who cares? Then you can actually pick a Jak'Sho if their damage is split enough. But if their AP threat is pretty lame, and they have like 3 auto takers, there you go Tormiel. Or you could have went something like this, they have 3 auto takers, sure, you buy this. Now, let's say you're a bit more worried because their Fizz or Kali is killed, you want a bit of magic resist so that if they end up targeting you in a fight because your teammates died, you're not gonna get completely, you know, fucked. So you'll build something like Jak'Sho, which helps you a lot against those 3 auto attackers, but also nice with some magic resist against the solo AP threat. This should all make perfect sense. It's not that complicated, I think. And you should look to buy this item as late as possible, because its value doesn't come from the base stats of the item, it comes from the passive. In order to justify buying this item, you have to get enough value from the passive. I would say you'd roughly around 4k gold if you just go by the rough stats for the item to be worth, because that's what you're gonna get if you look at items of similar price. Around 4k gold value, more or less. A lot of them have more than 4k gold value. Like a Trinity Force has more than 4k gold value in its stuff. A Rabadon as well, a Bloodthirster as well. So you are looking to have a minimum of 4k gold value, theoretically. I'm just giving you sort of a breakpoint, it doesn't really matter. What you have to understand is that this item becomes good in your champion when you end up having some resistances, at least a Frozen Heart. Like if you somehow end up going Jak'Sho third item, at least you'd need a Frozen Heart or a Force of Nature or a Tormiel, and there are so many more combinations of items that you can buy that are cheap and effective and maybe give some mobility haste that are way better than Jak'Sho, even on a pure tank. Let's say you did something like this on a pure tank. Although it doesn't really change much. Let's say you went Bami's Frozen Heart. A pretty normal build into auto attackers as a tank. You still don't want Jak'Sho. You want something more specific, such as a Tormiel. Do they really have heavy auto attackers? Go Tormiel with a new magic mantle. This is gonna be more effective, and then you can go into your Jak'Sho. Is their magic damage threat really super relevant? Well, maybe pick up a Kenny Krukern, and then look to get your Jak'Sho if the damage is really split. If not, again, maybe you have to pick up a Tormiel. Maybe you want to complete your Sunfire because it's a cheap option, you can't run out of gold, and it ends up dealing double damage compared to Bami's later on because of the ratio, scaling with your items, and then the amplification over time with stacks. Anyways, that's just kind of how itemization works. You can just randomly build an item that is barely efficient. You can be like, oh, it's a lot of armor in the mud, it must be a good item. That's like saying, oh, Rabadon gives a lot of AP, I should buy this on, I don't know, fucking Nami. It gives a lot of AP, bro. Just buy it on Nami, lol. That's really not how the game works. Well, like, yeah, Heartseal has a shit ton of health, just buy it, bro. To be fair, Heartseal could have... might be an underrated item after buff, who knows. I tried it today. As a second item, it was actually pretty nice for melee comp with not much damage. I got a lot of stacks, was interesting. Anyway, my last point that I probably should make, if I'm maybe missing something or forgetting something, is that if you look at Gargoyle Stoneplate, which nobody was building, it was pretty much slightly better than this. You could get 300 HP from the shield as long as you had maybe Overgrowth, HP per level rune, Doran's blade or something. It's not that hard to have that value. You'd get the same resists actually without having to wait 5 seconds, and on top of that you'd also get a good amount of ability haste, and the build path was better. But you'll not see Vayne with Gargoyle third item, you'll not see Yone with Gargoyle third item or second item or some bullshit like that. You'll just not see these things, even though the item was about the same and potentially even better. But now in Season 14 people randomly woke up and decided, yeah, Jak'Sho is really good on AD carries, guys, let's build it. Oh, but come. I hope everything makes sense here. I think I explained it very well. You know, actually, you know what, I don't give a fuck about your opinion. I'm right, you are wrong. If you build Jak'Sho on AD carries, you are really low IQ, you're really a dumb fuck. And I don't care about your opinion, really. Stop building Jak'Sho on carries. Stop building Jak'Sho on champions that have no resists. You are only gonna get value if you have resists. And at best, let's say, again, at best, my friend, you have a build like this where you purchased ability power items. Let's say somehow you have a random build like this, okay? And now you would want a Jak'Sho. No, because you have a lot of HP items and you simply want to be tankier. Maybe you're pulling Swain. Then you're a dumb fuck, just go Rabadon because he gives 10,000 AP. That's it with my video. See ya. Have a good one.